President Zelensky saying that casualties may actually be much higher in places besides Bucha. He specifically talked about Borodyanka. What are you hearing about potential atrocities in that area and other areas?
Президент Зеленський каже правду, тому що Буча – це лише
President Zelensky is right. Bucha is just one city. I am responsible for humanitarian corridors, and I can tell you, I can confirm that there hasn't been a single day where we could open a humanitarian corridor fully for women and children to escape. And today in Mariupol, people are dying. There are atrocities going on just as we speak in Mariupol. Putin is killing people there. 100,000 people in Mariupol are dying as we speak.
Are you expecting that what we've seen in Bucha is just the beginning? Will we see other scenes like this?
Так, ми побачимо такі звірства.
We will see such atrocities in many more places if Putin is not stopped. Putin is a war criminal. He must be stopped. His army chiefs are responsible for war crimes, and they must be found and they must be stopped. There must be an international effort to get them to hold them accountable in an international criminal court. If we don't do this together, then Ukraine will have to do this on its own. Because we have no other way, we have to find them.
Why, Deputy Prime Minister, did Zelensky mention Borodyanka? What has happened in Borodyanka?
Бородянка так само була.
Indeed, he mentioned Borodyanka because Borodyanka was also fully occupied for a while and we had no access. We could not see what was happening there. Therefore, we are inviting journalists, criminal experts, and anybody with relevant experience to come and witness what we will discover in Borodyanka, because we know that the animals in military uniform, there's no other way to call them, were torturing women and children.
They were torturing women and children. What have you learned?
Так, вони знущались з жінок і дітей.
Yes, because there are witness accounts, and we know that women were raped and civilians were killed just for walking in the street or hiding in the basement. Thousands of such people have been tortured and killed, and we have thousands of witness accounts. And we need I agree with President Zelensky when he says that this was conscious genocide of Ukrainian people.
You have been updating about the status of the mayors who are detained and about one mayor in particular, Olga Sukenko, who was killed along with her husband and her son. And I just wanted to clarify something that you said last night. Were you saying that her son was decapitated?
We found her son's head in the same ditch where they were buried.
I am so sorry. These are horrific things that we are hearing about, that the world must know about. I'm wondering what President Zelensky is going to be saying to the UN here shortly. What will his call to the world be?
Я думаю, він розповість про.
I think he will tell the whole world about what's happened, and if the world is still thinking how to minimize losses from the sanctions against Putin, whether to introduce an embargo on oil and gas imports from Russia, if the world is still thinking about that and how to evade sanctions, then they are all complicit, and they need to realize that these are the dollars that go to Putin and that he uses to kill Ukrainian women and children. And that makes everyone complicit and everyone responsible for these crimes. So if they want to evade sanctions, then they are responsible for these crimes as well. So you are a great American nation and you have a great president, Joseph Biden. You are the #1 country, and you need to take the lead and show people that we together we can stop Putin. We have to stop him, and together we have to say no to Russian oil and gas. And we have to stop these atrocities.
What more do you need from President Biden and America?
Нам потрібна протиповітряна зброя.
We need air defense. We need to make our skies safe because we are getting thousands of bombs, thousands of missiles dropping on the heads of our women and children. We need to protect civilians. And we also need an embargo on Russian oil and gas because that's the only thing that will stop Putin. We stop him with our arms in our hands and you stop him with the oil and gas embargo. And that's the only way we can keep our civilians safe.
America has stopped imports of Russian energy, but of course, America is not as reliant on it as Europe. What do you want from America when it comes to influencing Europe in that regard?
Допомогла стати їм більш незалежними.
I would like America to do what it can to make Europe less dependent on Russian energy. If in 2015 Germany knew full well that Crimea has been annexed and our Donbass and Lugansk regions have been annexed and occupied, and yet they continue to develop Nord Stream 2, and if that's what they do, then Germany is not fully aware of the danger and the threat that's facing Europe. And if France and Germany, while being mediators in the Normandy format over the agreements between Russia and Ukraine, and yet while being mediators, they continue selling arms to Russia. They sold hundreds of millions of euro worth of arms to Russia that were used to kill our women and children. And while being mediators in peace talks, then I think President Joe Biden and the American people must put all the influence, must put every pressure and use all their influence to make Europe, to rid Europe of this dependence on Russian oil and gas, which stink, frankly speaking, with the blood of our children. They smell. And so President Biden and the American people need to stop Putin and stop this campaign.
And if Bucha doesn't change their mind, doesn't change Europe's mind, what is your message to them?
Кров невинно вбитих
Then I want to say that the blood of our children is on their hands. They are responsible for what is happening in Bucha, Hostomel, Borodyanka, what happened in those places and what is happening in Mariupol.
We heard yesterday the former President Petro Poroshenko saying there needs to be an international commission, or an international mission, I should say, to investigate and document war crimes. Has that been initiated? Is that going to be requested if not?
Так, 2 дні тому президент Зеленський
2 days ago, President Zelensky announced the creation of an international commission with the involvement of experts in these areas, and anybody with experience can take part in investigating these war crimes. And we especially want to thank journalists and your channel, CNN, who are risking their lives to uncover and expose these crimes live on air, expose these atrocities that should not be happening in the 21st century.